Hi, this is Catherine, and welcome back to Taking Tea with Catherine. I'm drinking an herbal tea again, a detox tea, because I've just been having so much junk food lately. Sometimes just buying stuff at home, but also at work. There just seems to be so much on offer right now. And I thought, you know what, let's have something that at least is a semblance of cleaning up, even if it just tastes healthy. You know what? Mind over matter. And it's good. It does taste like I'm doing something right. My cat is staring at me really weird. Anyway, he does all kinds of things off camera. Sometimes he does them on camera too. So, I thought today we'd go back to my tea library and do a little tour. I have 3 books here. I was going to have 4 books, but one of them really is not about tea, and it's just about tasting. So if you want to have a tasting party, there it is. Ta-da! That's it. I showed it. It's over. But, I have books about afternoon tea per se, and they may have variations on afternoon tea, and I have other books similar to that. But the 3 books that I'm going to show you today are basically your standard kind of tea party, like an afternoon tea party. When I'm talking about, like the kind of more Britishy thing, but with its own flavor, a different kind of theme. Even though 2 of them are still kind of Britishy. Actually, all of them are. But just a little fun. Now, I'm not much of an entertainer per se. My apartment is shabby chic. Very much emphasis on shabby. And even though I have space, it's just not easy to get it together. I have, though, had some tea parties of some themes. I've had literary and poetry reading kind of tea parties, and they've been fun. So it's not like I never do it, but I rarely do it, because I'm talking about well over a decade. I've had a few of them, and that's it. So I'm not in the habit of doing it, but I kind of like to know how to, and if I'm ever called upon to lend expertise or these books, I'd rather lend my expertise. So I just like to sometimes acquire books that give hints, and even if I can't at the moment do these in their exact way, at least I can find inspiration, and sometimes just helps me to use my imagination, helps me to daydream, as it were. It's like when you read a travel book and you realize, okay, I may never get to this particular location, but I'm still going to read about it because it's interesting, and here go my daydreams. Similar-ish. So the first one is something I thought was kind of fun. Celtic Teas with Friends, and it's by Elizabeth Knight with illustrations by Hugh Harrison. It's beautiful. It's Teatime traditions from Cornwall, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. I've been to 3 of these places. I've never been to Cornwall. I would love to go to Cornwall someday. I've been to England, but somehow I never made it to Cornwall. It's supposed to be a bit warmer than the rest of the UK or something, due to where it's situated. And they actually grow tea there. So maybe one day I'll get to it, but not today. And the teapot is really pretty in the front. It reminds me of a teapot I've seen in Tea and Sympathy. I've always kind of been a nerd about Celtic stuff. Like, I've read a little bit about the history of the Celts, but more of like the more recent, thing. The 90s had a lot of Celtic inspired, musicians and stuff. And I guess also, Americans sometimes are into their roots maybe a little too much, looking into what their background is. And, places like, for instance, Scotland they make a lot of tourist money apparently and all these places on like people who come from like especially the United States or Canada or whatever, or elsewhere, who are from there and have some kind of ancestry, and they want to look into their clans, etc. So it's become probably an industry, and I am a part Scottish, so I had a grandfather who was actually born in Scotland, so it was probably one of my closest connections to another country. But so, like I've done the thing where I went to Scotland and looked into clan stuff and whatever, but I try not to get obsessed with it. But it can be fun, and there's always been over the decades, like a renewed interest here and there in the Celtic thing. You know, like people like W.B. Yeats, the poet, and people like that. They, you know, they'll bring an interest to people, and then novels will come out that, you know, just again like the Outlander series, you know. So I think there are always going to be people who just enjoy the whole Celtic thing, and people who are into holidays and stuff may like this a lot. I'm not really that into that sort of thing, but every month has a different kind of theme, like Burns Night, high tea. You know, Robert Burns, the poet, very, very, very Scottish. And November, Welsh, something word I can't pronounce. Housewarming tea, not homecoming tea, housewarming tea. So see this girl, she's gonna go to New York, you know. And it just has different ideas for parties and how to decorate, I guess, and what to serve. And there's just some really great recipes in here. They have teas like Darjeeling, and then a savory hen's teeth hickory smoked almonds, and then a sandwich like cucumber and watercress, and potatoes and gravy ice cream. But anyway, so they have things. They have music you can have, party favors, different like games you can do, and I just think that if you're into that, and you know, or maybe you've just come from one of these places and you want to throw a party for people based on it, this is a good source. So I enjoyed it. Now, another thing that I like but I've never been a complete part of is subcultures. Like I think I've mentioned before, I like the what do they call it? The Mori girl aesthetic that came from Japan, where, you know, dress in a lot of layers and you look like you've just been living in a forest. I love that thing, but I also work in an office, so I can't really completely, you know, commit to any of these kind of looks or lifestyles, and that's fine too, because sometimes it's not a matter of doing something in its entirety, it's a matter of just finding something interesting and inspiring in your life. So obviously steampunk is one of those kind of things. I've never been obsessed with steampunk, more interested. There's books that are steampunky, like from the past and present. I had read the Leviathan books. I don't remember how many books there were, a couple of them, 3, I don't know. Which I think was a young adult. It's been a while since I read it, so it was something along the lines of a boy who I think, or a man, young man, who was supposed to be like the son of Archduke Ferdinand, but survived the situation. And there was like a whole World War One, but alternative, and a cross-dressing girl, you know, obviously. And yeah, I remember the stories were really good. And I think that's what steampunk really is at its core. It's like alternative history. It's like if the technology of now had a more Victorian, Edwardian aesthetic, right? A little bit sci-fi, a little bit tea party, and I really like anything that has to do with tea parties, because one time after a long, sweaty, casually dressed walk, a friend and I ended up in Central Park, and we ran into a steampunk tea party, and it was fun to watch. We didn't stay long. We did not accept food because I've seen Alice in Wonderland. I mean, I've read it and seen it. And yeah, I wasn't about to accept food from strangers, even if they were delicious looking scones. But it just looked fun, and people were dressed basically. I'm gonna see if I can find pictures. Before, when I was opening this, all I could see were pictures of people in their clothing. Okay, here they are. This sort of thing, you know, kind of looking like scientists, but also kind of Victorian, Edwardian, with the hairstyles and the corsets. And, you know, they kind of always look like they're in some kind of ship or steamship or submarine. And they have something for everybody. They have, look at this, the scientific chateau tea menu, all kinds of fun tea things. They have like iced tea and other concoctions, it says here, in test tubes. So that's really interesting, you know. And steampunk, if you're going to throw a steampunk tea party, I mean, I know whenever I've had tea parties, I don't get too strict, you know, about, oh, you should definitely wear this or whatever, because most people just don't have the resources. They don't have things lying in their closet, and maybe you don't want to make them shop for things. Excuse me. But even if they do something slightly inspired. So it's up to the person throwing the party maybe to make the place look a little more inspired. I don't know. But hey, if people are down for dressing up, that's fun too. And yeah, so here's some more pictures. I'm getting allergic to steampunk apparently. But yeah, there's a whole idea with steampunk about being adventurous and being creative, and I think it's a lot of fun. I'm not the most intrepid traveler kind of person. My goodness, this cough comes out of nowhere. But I think it's fun. So it's Steampunk Tea Party, cakes and toffees to jams and teas, 30 neo-Victorian steampunk recipes from far-flung galaxies, underwater worlds, and airborne excursions. By Gemma, Emily, Lady Bird, Hewitt. The other thing about steampunk is that they usually add names to themselves, like titles, like Doctor this and Lady that and Sir that. It's fun and harmless. And so this is another book that is themed on a time period that I will never 100% subscribe to, but I like the look of it. This book came to me from a friend, a coworker that I used to work with, who was very much into shopping at the shop Anthropology, which has a lot of clothes and home things that are fun. I keep saying fun. And they also have books, and she would just buy things for everybody. She was just super generous, and she would always buy me things that based on things I like cat things, book things, tea things, London things. And so she saw this book, the Vintage Tea Party book by Angel Addery, The Complete Guide to Hosting Your Perfect Tea Party. And this is her, the writer. Her real pictures inside. She's wearing like very 40s-ish hairdo. They have instructions in here on how to do the hairdos, which if you've seen my hair, you know I probably couldn't follow those instructions, but someone might be able to. And it gives you all kinds of little crafts you can do to decorate. And most, when it says vintage, we're not really talking about vintage, like the kind of vintage I used to be into, which was like 60s and 70s mostly. This is more, I guess, the 40s. Maybe late 30s, 40s, early 50s. I don't know. But I think 40s for the most part. But that's a great time to have tea parties, except for obviously the rationing. But, you can work around that. So they have pictures of hair decorations. I mean, if you're a dude, you can do vintage tea parties too. But this seems to cater more toward the ladies, I think. And they have just interesting recipes. Rose panna cotta. I love flower influences on food. I don't do enough of it, but I mean, there's a lot of things that are actually flowers, like broccoli is a flower, but let's not go there. But I love things that have rose or lavender or violets. I mean, I just love that. I feel like I'm like a little fairy, and why not? So, ew. Sorry. Potted prawns. I'm not really into prawns or shrimp or whatever. That's just not my thing. I used to, but I don't care for it. And they have a recipe with a veal in here, and I am not a vegetarian, as I said. There's certain things that I just don't go for, but I can be a little bit, step back and not get too crazy and just enjoy what I see. They have this is interesting, a salad cemetery. So they have bell jars with little foods in it, mushrooms. My sister Bonnie would love that. I say sarcastically. Wild hibiscus champagne. That sounds amazing. And basically this book lets you look around in vintage stores or thrift stores for ideas for decoration, which I think is good. So, I mean, obviously a lot of these recipes call for ingredients that are a little bit much, but in your own way, if you want to have a fun tea party and you want to decorate and you don't want to spend $1 million on this, it gives you ideas of ways you can do so. And again, people like me, I'm not the most creative when it comes to these sort of things, but even people like me can use this as inspiration. Say, okay, maybe I can't go all out, but I can go slightly out. You know what I mean? Orange Eccles cakes, chocolate prune tea cakes. That might be fun. And look, they have a gluten-free chocolate cake. Why is it that almost every book of baking things has a gluten-free recipe, but it's always chocolate cake? So if you're like me and you always think maybe I should go gluten-free, but then it's like I really shouldn't be eating that much chocolate. So anyway, that's my little rant over. Chilled raspberry soup. You know, this is all kinds of fun things. I said fun again. You guys, if you're doing a drinking game based on me saying fun, you may need this detox tea as well. Anyway, so those are the three-ish books that I Are we gonna stack it up? Dun, 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 that I have that are. I may have other ones, but these are the ones I found that were a little out there, but not super out there, and it gives me like that mood, like I wanna plan a tea party, but I don't know if I'm gonna get to it anytime soon. I've wanted to do a tea party picnic too, but that is really hard to plan, especially somewhere like New York where there's like no outdoor space, or if there is, you have to have some money or a lot of permits and stuff. So it's usually not worth it. But even indoors, there's not a lot of, of things to do. But there are also some cool restaurants in places like New York and London and probably plenty of other cities that have little whimsical, inspirational tea party kind of situations. Or even if it's not a tea party place. I remember there was a place called, I'm going to forget what it's called. Lily's Victorian. It's gone from my head. And it wasn't that long ago that I went there. There's two of them in Manhattan, but it's kind of like the decor looks like an old Victorian inspired place, a little bit steampunk, but not quite. Or, okay, this is not necessarily tea either, but you know, I like a good drink here and there. The Way Station in Brooklyn, which is also steampunk inspired, but also kind of nerdy. They have a TARDIS bathroom. So, you know, you can see places that have been inspired by such things, and you can go to that as well. Or you could just take ideas and make part of it your own. So, anyway, I hope you found this enjoyable. If you guys have read any of these books, please comment down below. If you have read other books that are similar, please let me know, because I always like to know more. If you guys have done these sort of themes, whether it's a tea party or whether it's, a lot of people have done some kind of Alice in Wonderland theme thing, so that's cool. But any kind of themed party, baby shower, something, and you just want to talk about it, just please comment down below, because I just find this stuff so interesting. So anyway, this has been Catherine from Taking Tea with Catherine, and I hope you've had a lovely tea-filled, slightly detox day. Goodbye.